Hi, I'm Michelle Mercurio. Welcome to the show where we interview people who have ditched their plan to pursue their purpose. Let's dive in. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome this amazing human that I met a few years ago to the show today, Racheal Cook. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you? Welcome, come in, sit down, tell me more about what's happening in your life, all the things.
Oh my goodness, Michelle. Thank you so much for having me. First off, thank you so much. I'm so glad to have a little bit of time just to chat with you because it's always
Absolutely.
fun.
It is.
Who am I and what do I do? So, professionally, I am the founder of the CEO Collective, where we help women entrepreneurs to start and scale businesses without the hustle and burnout. Personally, I'm a wife. I'm a mom of 3. I have way too many animals in my house. And I am a voracious reader of all the books.
I love that about you because I always think that you get, I know that we've talked in the past and it's like, oh, I have this book or I have this resource or I have this, and I think that that is just kind of a fun fact that is also about Racheal. What are you reading right now?
What am I reading right now? I've got always like 6 or 7 different books if they are nonfiction that I'm reading. So I'm reading Brene Brown's latest book, which is great. I'm reading Nicola Pera's How to Do the Work, which is also great.
Yes.
And then I am reading an entire fantasy fiction about fairies, and it's wonderful.
I feel like that also helps us in our business lives. How many people do you know? I mean, you are the founder of the CEO Collective, and 2 words that you said when you introduced your company
Yeah.
were hustle and burnout, which
Yeah.
are 2 things that you help people avoid.
Yes. Absolutely.
So, talk to me about how you do that and why fiction is important. Actually, the fiction part is just, ad-libbing, but tell me a little bit about how you
Yeah.
help people avoid the hustle and the burnout.
Well, I think it helps to know kind of like the background of why I'm so passionate about it, and that's because I hit burnout hard, early on in my career. I finished college early, I got my MBA early and went straight into consulting and proceeded to run myself physically, mentally, emotionally into the ground. Anyone who has been in the world of consulting, it doesn't matter if you're in one of the biggest consulting companies or small boutique companies, they tend to operate by you're going to work 75, 80 hours a week. And they have an extremely high turnover rate. There's a reason for it. It's because of this old school, like very Wolf of Wall Street mentality of just like go, 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 go. And I found myself having 10 panic attacks in 10 weeks. I realized that, I was in my mid 20s and I was like, this is not normal. Like a 20 something should not be feeling like she's having a heart attack every day. What do I do? And that was the first time I really started to question my path. Because I was the typical like type A overachiever. Anything I went after, I got it, I did it, I won all the awards, checked all those boxes. So for me, it felt very much like a huge shift in my life because it was the first time that I really ever questioned what I was doing. I was so used to like getting all the accolades and everybody patting me on the back and telling me how great I was. And I soaked it up like a little sponge. But then when my body literally started shutting down on me, I was like, okay, something's wrong here. And maybe this is not how I actually want to be living my life.
I think you hit it earlier than a lot of people because I think that typically people who are a few years into their careers, at least, those 30s and 40s, I didn't hit my burnout until I was in my late 30s. And I think the only thing that really supported that burnout for me, and I didn't even have the wherewithal to see it before then, was because, I didn't have a typical family structure, right? Where I didn't have children. So I had a midlife crisis early. I say that a lot. But having it hit so hard in your 20s, I remember back in that shifting momentum, and you're working all the time. And I remember being part of corporate in my late 20s and being part of a job where it was hugely rewarding and amazing achievements and all of the things that you just said, and losing my mind and crying and hysterical and wondering, is this really what I want? So
Yeah.
how did you quit this?
I took disability for 3 months.
At a
I
girl. Wow.
literally went to my manager and I was like I was afraid I was gonna hurt myself, like, drive off of I-95 and get hurt on the drive back and forth between DC and Atlanta, 'cause, yeah, I was based in Atlanta. Um, and I was just like, I'm scared to even get in my car because 'cause I've started having these panic attacks. So, I took a 3-month paid disability leave. And basically, I mean, it's a mental health leave. That's what it was considered because that's what I was going through. And what compounded it for me, I mean, 1, I'm such an overachiever. I had this burnout by the time I was, 25.
Way
Also,
to hit it early, like everything else,
way to peak
Rachel.
early. And also, I think, speaking of the book I was reading, the How to Do the Workbook, I mean, I did not know anything about trauma. I did not know anything about, I was raised by an alcoholic. I have a fully disabled mother who's been disabled since I was 4 years old. I had a lot of trauma that was just compounding and compounding and compounding until like all the things started colliding at the same moment. And it was like, whoa, something has got to give. Like I had so much drama going on the family side of things. My career was, I got to the point where you remember Blackberries when we all had
Oh, I
Blackberries?
had it.
I had
High achiever, BlackBerry. Uh-huh.
So I had my work BlackBerry, and I remember I got to the point when, like, I would get a call from my family, and I would just, like, chuck that thing so hard across the room because it was just triggering me so much, and I couldn't get away from any of it. It was such a pressure cooker for me. So I think, I'm glad it happened when it did because I was able to course correct pretty early, in my life. I mean, 15 years later, and here we are, and my life is amazing now, and I'm really grateful for it because if I wouldn't have had that then, I couldn't imagine where I would be if I just continued on that path and then added kids to the equation and then added, everything else into the mix. I would have been a train wreck.
So I want to ask you about the mental health leave
Yeah.
because I think so often we are told to push through, to get over it, to strong women make things happen.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about how you felt having to take that leave, and then also about what you would like other people to know about having some sort of about taking care of themselves.
Yeah. I mean, one, I have to say, even though there was a lot about the environment I was working in that was not great and pretty toxic, I was lucky that I did have a couple people who were in that office who were real advocates for me. I was the only woman in an office full of men, and my mentor was an older Black gentleman, and together we were kind of the outsiders. Like, here's this young girl and this older Black guy, and he kinda watched out for me a bit, and so he's the one that said, "I think you need to call this number and talk to, and see if there's something you can do to get a little bit of time off and protect your job." So one, having advocates there is huge, like people that you can talk to openly and be like, "Holy, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this." Um, but yeah, I think it's one of those things like it's become more commonplace now, I think, to talk about anxiety and to talk about depression or to talk about whatever else you might struggle with. Back then, I didn't even know I had anxiety. Like that's how I had no clue what was going on. I was just like so used to doing my thing that it took that level of stress to finally be like, "Oh, there's actually a problem here," instead of just, ignoring it, ignoring it, ignoring it. And it's not I would say if you are somebody who knows you are predisposed to anxiety or depression or any other mental health challenge, um, if you don't pay attention, your body will get your attention.
Right. Like
And
you're
that's what has happened to me. I mean, it wasn't just the anxiety and panic attacks. I had adrenal fatigue. I still struggle with chronic fatigue syndrome. Um, it physically manifested in a lot of ways that really was like, okay, you've got to pay attention right now.
right. I'm glad you listened to yourself. I'm glad you took the break. So how did you make the shift into what you're doing now?
So I spent a lot of time crying on a yoga mat,
Don't we
basically.
all?
Which is basically how my business side of my story starts. Like, I took that medical leave not knowing what was next, just knowing I didn't want that anymore, that there had to be something else that would allow me to do work I knew I was really good at, but didn't require me to just run myself into the ground. And I also knew I had some personal work I had to do. So I spent those 3 months with a life coach, with a therapist, on a yoga mat. I went to a retreat center for children of alcoholics. I mean, I did everything. It was like 10 years of therapy squished into 3 months. I was trying to really get to the root of like what the heck was going on. And what ended up happening is, and you'll love this, Michelle, actually, the building where the Broad used to be here downtown in
Mm-hmm.
Richmond,
Mm-hmm.
the yoga studio that I would go to is Grace Yoga there, run by Arlene Bjork. And I became fast friends with her. She became like another person who made such an impact in my life. And she was like, I know you don't want to go back to corporate. Could you help me with the studio? So I ended up running that studio for a few months. And suddenly she's saying, could you teach so and so? Or I have a friend who could also use help. And that was the start of my business, which started as the Yogipreneur. I started working specifically with yoga and holistic health businesses because she literally was like, I didn't have anyone I could turn to who understood what I was trying to create in my business, who could also figure out like the business stuff. So that was kind of like, it all is so serendipitous. I did not plan to start that business. That was not in the plan. But it kind of happened just because I kept taking one step in front of the other. And that's what my whole business has been. Like, yes, I make plans, but often it's just taking one step in front of the other and keep moving forward and keep paying attention to what's coming up or what's happening.
I think that you saying the pay attention piece is huge.
Mhm.
I know, I mean, we talked about the fact that the show is called Be the Plan, right?
Yeah.
It's great to have plans. I am not against a plan. I'm really not.
I love a
However,
plan. I sell a planner. I lead planning events.
look, I can't even tell you how many planners are currently on my desk in front of me,
Yeah.
and I'm not going to because I'm a little embarrassed. However, that being said, the pay attention piece is key. You can hand
Yeah.
anybody a plan, but if you're not listening, if you're not understanding, if you're not noticing, if you're not paying attention to the climate around that,
Yeah.
and then also to yourself, right? There are
Yeah.
so many plans out there that aren't necessarily aligned with who you are. I'm sure being a consultant, you served up plans all day, every day.
All day, every day. And you know what changed a lot for me was I went to this event, this week long retreat, basically. And, we've all done a million vision boards. That is like a very popular activity. But I'm at this retreat for people who are adult children of alcoholics, and they asked us to make a vision board. But it was based on how do you want to feel? Not what do you want, but how do you want to feel?
I
And it
taught
was
an entire workshop the other week with the guiding question of how do you want to feel today? How do you align your day to that? How do
yeah.
you want your business to feel? I love this. I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, this is
Well,
awesome.
it
Yes.
was for me, it was a game changer because every other time I am exceptionally good at goal setting.
Yeah.
Like, that is something I can do no problem. The problem is when you set a goal and you're going towards the wrong vision, right? You're not going in the right direction. If you're just setting goals because you want the accolades and the awards. And
Or
that's
the
what I had
money
previously
or
done.
whatever it is.
Exactly. And so it was the first time I'd created a vision based on how I wanted to feel. And there were things on that vision board that I was just like, holy cow, like I had a little girl playing in a pool and I had a piano and I had, books everywhere and there were chickens. And I was like, okay, apparently I need to feel more playful. Apparently I need to have a little more fun. What do I need to do to make my life look like that? And
So what
I
did
was a
you
game
do?
changer.
Because we know what you did in
Yeah.
some ways. You've alluded to it, right? You created a
Yeah,
very different business.
I did. So what I did was, one, I knew I am exceptionally trained in business and strategy and planning. That's something that is an amazing skill set that I'm very lucky I have it and I can monetize that very easily. But what was most important to me was that I focused on who I wanted to surround myself with, and that was the most important part of starting my business and getting that going. And honestly, it continues to be a lot of the starting part of everything I do. I'm like, I don't want to take on clients just for the sake of taking clients. They've always got to be people who I'm like excited when they talk to me about their business. It makes my brain happy because the minute they start sharing their vision, my brain starts going like, and we can do this and this and this and this, and I can see the path. So I knew I wanted who I wanted to work with. I knew what the skill set I was bringing to the table. And the next part was I just had to figure out how do I make the life part work. And so what I did was different. Before I'd been taught that you put your career above everything. And you put, if everybody who starts a business, it's like you have to put in your time, you have to pay your dues, you have to hustle, hustle. And I was like, well, what if I don't want to do any of that? And what if I want to have lazy mornings and I want to have time for yoga every day and I want to have time to, cook healthy meals and go on vacation? Like, what if I designed my life first and then looked at, so what does that leave me with to do in the business? And what I came to was I really only wanted to work 25 or 30 hours a week. And so I designed my business around that container with my life first. And then I figured out how to make my business work in that container.
I want to ask you about that, but I want to go back to something you said first, too. You said you only take on clients and people that you work with, and you want to be excited and you want to make your brain happy. I
Yeah.
also hear you want to make your heart happy, right? Like you
Yeah.
want to feel energized and supported, and you want to energize and support others. So, who are your people, Racheal?
Yeah. It's so fun because it's expanded over the years. I don't really have a niche in the way that most people think of a niche anymore, even though, with my business starting as the yogipreneur, it was definitely very niched. What kept happening to me is over the years, as I started creating content and putting, things out into the world, I started having people who are like, I'm not a yoga teacher, but I'm a life coach. I'm not a yoga teacher, but I'm a photographer. I'm not a yoga teacher, but I'm this or that. And what I found is there's a lot of women who want to do business in this way. They are
Absolutely.
super smart, super creative. They have some sort of experience or expertise to bring to the table. And they're trying to figure out, how do I share what I am amazing at with the world without it being something that only works if I'm working, 50, 60 hours a week.
Absolutely. I always say
Yeah.
that you niche to values, not to demographics.
That is
Mhm.
absolutely what we have done. I mean, the women we work with, I say we're industry agnostic because we have so many different industries represented in the CEO collective. But the biggest thing is they have this value of doing great work while living an amazing life, that you don't have to sacrifice your life or your health or your family or your relationships or your spirituality or your creativity or any of the parts that make us, whole human beings. We don't have to sacrifice that in order to do business. And I think I mean, to me, because I've been in this mindset for so long, it's like, well, of course, why wouldn't you do that? But to a lot of people, it is a radically different mindset.
I think about that all the time because I told somebody I was planning my life goals first a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, right? Where I literally put on a calendar all the things I wanted to do for my life, not for my business. And the things that came up supported all of my business things anyway, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it's such an interesting shift when you consider what it is that you want to feel and you want to help others feel first, that the work sorts itself out and it just pops up. And I know that sounds kind of woo woo, but it's not really. I think that the other piece of it is having kind of that process behind it. Know who you want
Yeah.
to work with, know who you want to, hang out with. Let's not even say work with. Who do you want to hang out with?
Yep.
Chances are you're surrounding yourself with the people who are high achieving, interesting, fun, capable women.
Yes. I mean, and that is, I think that is the key if you're going to be in business is we spend so much of our life building a career, building a business. If you're doing it with people you don't even like,
What's the
you're
point?
spending more time with them likely than you will with your kids or you will with your spouse or you will
Yeah,
with your friends. You
right.
might as well like those people.
I had a client meeting right before our call, and we both literally, before we hung up, were like so excited. We were kind of jumping up and down for this product that I'm helping her create. And, she's like, I'm so excited. I can't wait to go do this. And I said, I know, I can't wait either. And so I blew her a kiss, and she's like, I love you. And I'm like, I love you. And I'm like, I'm hanging up the phone and then coming in to chat with you, another person who like I love and admire and who does great work and who's always out there doing all these things. And this is the life I want.
Right? Yeah. And I think just by us talking about it, what we're really doing is giving everyone who's watching permission to think this way about what they want to create. Because I know when you're standing in the stressy, messy middle, that's when it's hard to see like, how do I make a change so that I can get there? And it doesn't have to be as drastic as like what I did. I don't necessarily recommend taking 3 months off of your life to figure stuff out, but it could just be
Oh, I
like,
left my job. I left my husband. I left my household. I left everything. I mean, it got back to the husband, but I never went back to everything else.
you're like, we're
Right.
just burning it all down.
I just burned the bridge behind me and the castle and the moat, and then the fire lit my way forward. I just don't feel like everybody has to do that, but
No.
you and I kind of did it a little early.
Well, and I think there's some people who do have to burn the boats, and there's some people who it's maybe about creating that vision of what you want, thinking about what you want your whole life to look like, and then aligning everything else to that. Because it doesn't have to be all or nothing. It doesn't have to happen instantaneously. It could be a gradual shift. And I've got a lot of clients who it has taken them a couple years to realign because their business supports their family. And like, we can't just burn everything down while they're doing this. It takes them a little while to put the systems and the structure and the things in place. So if
But the
you
point
haven't,
is they're taking the steps and you're
they're
helping
taking
them
the
do
steps.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
do you teach this to your children?
Oh, this is interesting. So, oh gosh,
Because your
parenting is one
kids
of
are
those.
adorable.
They are. So everyone who's watching, I had an open house at my new beautiful office space, and Michelle came, and my whole family was here. And of course, my youngest is a little charmer. I mean,
Totally.
he will just he's just a little love bug. He wants to make everybody smile, make everybody happy. Honestly, I think so much of my parenting is so similar to the way I approach like everything in my life. If I take care of myself first, then they will be taken care of. And I think this is again, this is like counterintuitive from what a lot of people think. A lot of people hear like you can't pour from an empty cup, right? And so they're focusing on a cup. They're focusing on a cup, trying to pour and refill and pour and refill. My approach is stop doing that. Why are we pouring out and refilling and pouring out and refilling? That's stopping and starting and stopping and starting. How about we just have like a waterfall coming into the cup and then the overflow is what everybody else gets? And that's how I am with my kids. Like, so I think kids are little sponges. They watch what you do, they watch how you show up in the world. And my kids are just so curious. So they've watched all of this, right? Julie has come in to be an assistant for a workshop and like pass out workbooks and stuff. And Alex has done some stuff behind the scenes. They've all stuffed envelopes and they've seen a lot of stuff. But I think because they see one, that I love the work that I do, they're going into this world knowing you can find work that you love to do.
I love
And
that because a lot of us did not start with that story.
no, not at all. And so they get to see that. And They've met some of my clients, you know, so they hear different things about what my different clients do and they start to know who those people are. Um, they see that I take the time to take care of myself and that I'm not showing up cranky or frustrated or anything with them because they see like I carve out time for my own self-care. They see me reading a stack of books all the time. They know very clearly who I am. And my husband and I have set it up so that they are going to go into this world with a, you know, a very different perspective than probably a lot of kids. I mean, especially homeschooling the last 2 years of this pandemic, we've pretty much let them direct a lot of what they've been doing. It's very been, you know, their interests are leading the way with their homeschool. I
I think
love
you've
that.
set them up for a ton of self-trust and also the permission to be themselves. So there is nothing more beautiful than that.
Yeah, it's being a mom is the most fun thing ever. These kids are so cool.
Yeah, yeah, they are cool. I'm glad I got to meet them. I have one more question for you about process
Sure.
because it is well and good to say put ourselves first and make sure that we've got the waterfall running into the cup and all of those good things.
Yeah.
What role does process play in all of this?
It plays such a massive role. I am very systems and process oriented.
I know.
And the I would say the biggest thing for me is my calendar. And I love there's a saying out there that if you give me your bank statement and your calendar, I can tell where your priorities are. And I think it's so true. And I think if you went and sat down and said, here's my life goals, here's my life vision, but then I look at your calendar and there's no time on there for that, that's why so many times we hear from people who are like, I don't have time to go to the gym. I don't have time to cook a meal. I don't have time with my kids. I don't have it. Like, I hear a lot of, I don't have time from some people. And really to me, I'm like, that means you're not making the time. And even more important, you're not honoring your own word to yourself. Like, you're breaking promises to yourself when you don't make the things that are important to you a priority. So for me, I mean, I live and die by my calendar. I have a very structured calendar where in business, I have specific things I'm doing each day of the week, and I don't really deviate from that. And I do the same thing on the personal front. We sit down every single month on the personal front. Like, you should see in my kitchen, we have a whole command center with that month and what's going on. Like, when's date night? When's the kids' night? You know, what does the meals look like? Like, we plan a lot of these things out in advance so that we have made time for the important things that we want to do as a family. We sit down and create a family bucket list every month. And the kids get involved and they tell us like what they want to do. And so I really use the same systems at home as I do in my business, which might sound crazy, but I really feel like it's the most important organization you're ever going to run.
It sounds like alignment is what it sounds like. And it also, I love everything. If nothing else, I hope what people take away from this is that prioritizing and planning also does not rob you of freedom. It gives you freedom.
It gives like I average and I actually because I do an annual review every year, the last couple of years I average anywhere from 10 to 12 weeks off every year. Last year I averaged working about 15 hours a week, which was low for me. But I mean, you get so much time back when you build things intentionally.
Right. Beautiful. I love that. So tell me what's next for you.
What's next for me is honestly like the last couple of years were pretty tough. And I am enjoying having things just kind of be consistent. I am not rocking the boat right now. I actually decided to pull back on a couple projects because I realized that my kids are 12, 12, and 9. So we're kind of at this sweet spot where there's some things we want to do as a family before they become teenagers and hate us. So we're going to start going on some trips now that, you know, things everybody's vaccinated and whatnot. So that's what's on board for me right now is focusing on that. On the business side of things, I'm finally getting my book, Promote Yourself to CEO, written, even though I've had it in an outline for like 3 years now, you guys.
That's beautiful. I love it.
It's time. It's time to get the book done, but I had to take a lot of things off the plate in order to make some space for that.
How many things do you think that you have on your plate at any given time?
Well,
Like from like 30 to 50. I know you organize it very well,
this
but big
week I had
project.
3. I had to make a calculator and write 7 emails and then go on vacation for the rest of the week.
See, this
So
is perfect. This is perfect.
I try to avoid having more than 3 to 5 things a week that I am responsible for. Um, and that way I don't get overloaded. I build a lot of margin into my calendar. And when we create project plans and everything for my business, I'm really good at overloading it. And then my right hand, Amber, is really good at telling me no. And I think you need someone like that if you want to make sure you're not like overloading your calendar or overloading the plan with things that really aren't going to make that big of a difference.
I think that's important too. I definitely like the people who help me say no to things. And I love the protecting my calendar as well. So it has saved my life quite many, many different times.
Absolutely.
Where can people find you?
Well, the best place to find me, one, if you're into podcasts, come find me on anywhere you listen to podcasts. It's Promote Yourself to CEO. I publish new episodes every week about how to scale up your business without the hustle and burnout. And if you just want to connect with me, Instagram is my favorite place. So at Racheal.cook, that is my favorite place to check in with people and message and share a little bit more behind the scenes of what we're up to.
I love it. Thank you so much. We will obviously link to everything that you have. And I hope that I will be reading your book soon. I hope to also finish my book. So maybe we need a little accountability together.
I know. I'm like, maybe we need to go find a Airbnb and just knock out some pages.
Exactly. I feel a writing retreat in our future. Thank you so much for joining me today, for sharing some of your magic behind the scenes. I just adore all the things that you're doing. I always know that you have a great process and also great fun along the way. So thank you again for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for joining me today. Go ahead and like and leave me a comment. I'd love to hear what you have to say. If you don't want to miss anything, click that subscribe button.